3, 2, 1, go! Kung Fu Kickball.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Fat Games podcast. I am Blair, one of your hosts, and Gary is the other host. Say hi,
Yeah,
Gary.
I'm the other host, but I have less of a radio voice than Blair.
I don't know if I have a radio voice. Anyway, we are joined by two very special guests this week. That's right, we actually have guests. Joining us are Jonah and John. Jonah and John have been working on Kung Fu Kickball by Whale Food Games. All right, guys, say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Man, he's even got a shirt too. Blair, when are we gonna get shirts?
When you pay for them.
Oh, I have to pay for them. Oh man.
Yeah.
Hey, we should get Chris to make us some.
It's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, probably.
The whole way we made fun of him in the game and stuff.
Is he still bitter about that?
Oh, maybe.
Sorry, Chris. It wasn't my idea.
Anyway, less about that, more about our guests. So, Jonah, why don't you go first? Tell us about yourself. Like, what's your background? How did you get into game dev? Anything else you think might be important? Why are you here tonight?
Hell, I've been wondering that myself. I don't know how I ended up on your show. I just kind of stumbled in and saw you on my computer and it's like, oh, I guess I'll talk to this guy.
Free beer.
That's right, free beer. Where'd this come from? So how'd I get into games? Well, I guess background, my parents made the mistake of buying me an NES back in the day. And I kind of been hooked on games ever since. It kind of what, got me interested in computer science originally. So like, even when I was, graduating high school, I was like, I want to do computer science and learn to code so I can make games. And then, I went to college and majored in computer science. But then I was like, oh, I don't like, the game industry seems tough and like you're building something for someone else. So maybe I'll just like do other programming job first. So I got a job as a web developer and did that for many years. But eventually it was like, I really want to go back to that original dream of making games. So I actually, at that point, I was doing pretty well as a web developer. So I went up to my boss and I was like, hey, you're paying me pretty well. How about I work half time and you pay me half my salary? And then I can spend my other half time like making games and stuff. And somehow they were okay with that. So that's kind of how I really transitioned to like taking game development seriously. I had kind of dabbled with it for a bit before then, but it wasn't until then really having the extra time that I could really dive in that I really started, actually making stuff. And then, of course, moving to New York helped a lot with that too, because I found this great community. I had lived in Boston and San Francisco and a little bit in Chicago before, but in those other places, although there were game development communities, New York was pretty unique in that there are a lot of independent, like single-person game developers here, like especially in like San Francisco. I found game devs out there, but they were usually like working for bigger companies and things like that. So it wasn't until coming to New York and like kind of through the play crafting group finding other people who are also like making games on their own, that I, kind of found my people. So, and Blair, you're one of them, so
Hey.
that's really why I'm on this show, is because of that. We now call ourselves Gumbo, and we're just like this group of independent game developers who work next to each other, and kind of, we're each making our own games, but then we advise each other if we're running into issues, or get each other to play test, and it's a very collaborative environment, even if our projects are separate. And yeah.
Wow. So, sorry, go ahead.
No,
I feel like you and I are the same person.
I had that same thought where, like, Blair, your story was very similar to Jonah's.
I did not live in Chicago or Boston, but I lived in San Francisco. And in terms of schooling and background, by the way, Jonah and I are basically the same age, and we probably went through it all at the same time. And similarly, I wanted to make games. Instead of actually asking my boss if I could go halftime, which in hindsight would have been a smarter idea, I just asked to take a leave of absence. And I happen to be back working for that employer full time, whereas Jonah, you are?
Yeah, I managed to completely separate now. Now I am just full-time working on the game stuff. This latest one, Kung Fu Kickball, has definitely got a lot more momentum to it than my previous game. So I released a mobile game before this one called Too Many Snakes, which was, I'm still really proud of that game. But it was a much simpler game. It was just a mobile puzzle game, and completely bombed financially. But at least it got me through the whole process.
I can relate.
Once again, another Blair Pile parallel.
Yep. So I got that under my belt, and I feel like completing a game is a huge step. Like, just going through the process of getting it up on the store and actually selling it, there's a huge step involved from going from just like making a game jam project, like making a small prototype, to like actually releasing something. So once you can release something, then I think you're on a great path to like make better stuff. So since then, I started working on Kung Fu Kickball, and that's been a lot more promising in terms of just the market. And I was able to get a publisher with this one, so I have working with this Australian company called Blowfish Studios, and they're helping me with porting the game to like Switch and Xbox and PlayStation. So yeah, definitely this one's got a lot more potential than my previous one.
That sounds freaking awesome. Maybe Gary and I will see the same luck.
I actually bought Kung Fu Kickball over the weekend.
Oh, sweet, thanks.
You might be seeing 22 Canadian bucks coming your way.
Nice.
I'm waiting for the Switch version only because I never play anything on my computer.
Well,
don't worry. What's that?
That Switch version is definitely coming. Probably, I want to say we're trying to hit around August. But
that's really soon, actually. That's
no promise.
Awesome. Yeah. All right.
Is it going to be that? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Gary.
No, I was just going to ask if that the Switch version is going to play differently than the PC, or are they going to kind of be very, very similar?
Yep, very similar. In fact, we're really using the PC version right now to kind of test things out, make sure there's no serious bugs or anything before we're releasing the console versions. Just because it's a lot easier to push updates to PC than it is to console. Like, in fact, Switch, Nintendo has like really big restrictions on even how much you can update your game. I think you're limited to like 500 megabytes lifetime, unless you get approval by them. So
we'll get into that in a bit, because I do want to ask you about that, because we've talked about that before. But I feel like we should give John a chance to talk. John, I got the same question for you. What's your background? How did you get into game music creation? But I'm assuming you probably do music for other things. I actually don't know. So tell us your story.
Yeah. Let's see. How did I get into it? I guess it was just something I got really into music in high school. And before that, I guess. I mean, you grow up, you hit your tweens, you find your favorite thing, and it's your favorite thing. I went to like I figured out like, okay, like this is what I want to do. I felt this like um purpose, I want to say. Maybe that's a little bit like um uh that's a pretty big word for it. I would just say, it's like, oh yeah, I'm into this thing. I find this meaningful. I like it. So um from there I figured I definitely wanted to do game music more than anything else, because I guess thought I felt like I saw it as a way, one, to make a thing without actually having to perform music in front of people. Um, and two, I don't have to like promote myself. I can just, it's just, Jonah has to deal with that stuff. um,
I mean, you still
yeah,
got to promote yourself though to developers and stuff. I feel like that's such a
yeah. I mean, that's just like meeting people and making friends. That's cool. I don't have to like, I don't know, like, hey, world, it's me. Want to pay attention to me? I don't have to do that. I don't have that like relationship with, I guess our audiences. So that's another part of it I guess just like working on other people's stuff that I really liked. So like I guess I saw it as a way to like um uh I guess it's a way to like for me to be able to focus on the craft of it all. And the meaning of the work is kind of already given to me, or like that's something that I get to start with and play with and like branch out from there, but I don't have to have like the initial seed of it. So I get to really just focus on certain parts of the process more than others. Um, and I mean, I guess of course it's just because like I liked a lot of game music as a kid, so um, that was probably um, I feel like you develop a different relationship with the music from a game than like any other kind of music that you have in your life. I mean, especially back then, it's like um, that was music that was getting into our houses, like that we were listening to as kids, that like wasn't going through any of the distribution channels, I guess, of like the music industry. It's not the movie industry. This is just some dude in an office somewhere who gets to have his music in your house. And like uh there wasn't like, it's not like Warner Brothers had to sign off on that or anything. So I was that was really cool.
it is
Wow.
interesting that like
Yeah, that
uh, it's almost like video game music gets introduced to, at least for us who grew up with games. You start playing games almost before you start really like identifying bands and music you like listening to. So it's almost like the first, uh, ingrained in us, like music in a way that's our picking, right? Because we pick the games that maybe our parents were pushing like their musical choices on us, but like our parents weren't picking our games for us. We were picking our games. So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Um
when did you first sort of pardon me for asking, but sort of which era in gaming did you grow up on? Because
let's see. Yeah. There's probably a bunch of answers to that, because it can't, there were different ways. It's like my immediate answer is like when I got an N64 and played games like Smash and Zelda. Um, but it also goes before that. Like I think that's when like the games really hit me like in that way, and I like really cared about it. Um, but my first games were probably the like humongous entertainment adventure games, like uh like Putt Putt and Pajama Sam, these wonderful, just like little adventure games that have.
I don't know either of those games. I'm
You
sorry.
should check them out. Like these games. All right, first, as the grown up, these are like 20 minutes long tops. But
Oh,
as a
okay.
kid, if you're like 4, it takes you months, and it's wonderful.
These are point and click games, or
What's that?
these are point and click adventure games.
Yeah, they're point and click adventures. Mechanic, I guess is you pick up items sometimes, you talk to stuff. And it just has so much character to it. The thing that I think really stands out now is like just how interactive the worlds were. Like, how, I don't know, these days I play a game. I'm playing Resident Evil 8. You click on a thing and you get some flavored text. It's just like, oh, this mug has some blood stains on it or something. I don't know. And that's cool. You tell your story the way that's appropriate. But Pajama Sam says, oh, you clicked on this leaf. Well, a worm is going to play some mariachi music. And then it's going to get eaten by a bird. And it's going to go like, oh no, what's going to happen to me? And like every pixel on the screen is rigged with this like, just like completely insane, like sugar animation that is incredibly beautiful. So I would encourage you to check these out.
Yeah, I'm looking at screenshots of it right now. So this is an older game, right? It looks like it was released in 1996.
Yeah, I played them on my parents' Mac.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like those. I don't know. It was probably the one before those like little bubble Macs.
These graphics are pretty sweet though. Like even for today's standards.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to check this out.
I will too. Sounds awesome. So, John, you made music for a few games in the Gumbo community, and I don't know if I have an exhaustive list, and I hope you'll sort of let me know about that. But
yeah, me either. I don't know.
So Zarvot was a personal favorite of mine. I was a big supporter of Sam's endeavor in that, and the music in that game was phenomenal. I know you're also doing Skate Story for him as well, which I'm also looking forward to. But of course, I'm very much looking forward to Kung Fu Kickball, which you are also doing the music for. What has been your favorite piece so far?
Man,
or maybe what's your favorite part of the experience with these different titles?
Okay, my favorite part of the experience when working with Gumbos. Let's see. Probably those scrumbos that I can't go to anymore, but
that's changing soon.
just eating lunch on the roof with them. That's probably the best part, honestly.
So like the social interaction. Yeah, I've only eaten lunch with them on the roof once.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You guys have a lunchtime thing on the roof, eh?
Yeah, it kind of died when COVID hit.
Oh yeah.
But the Scrumbo stuff is like we did it like on Discord for a while. Now we're doing it in person again, whichever day it's happening now.
Yeah, I think we're on Mondays now, every other Monday.
I will never come on a Monday. It's not possible.
But yeah, we had to lock things down for a bit because of COVID. But now I think everyone at Gumbo should be fully vaccinated within the next week. So we can start opening things.
Sick.
So yeah, you can definitely start coming back to Gumbos. Not banned.
Reinstated.
That's right.
So what is your favorite music then, John? Or do you have a single? Is that a fair question? Do you have a single favorite? So
no,
far?
it is because I actually keep this list in my head most days.
Oh wow!
Like I'll update it. I've got a Notion with a list of my favorite ones and what ones are kind of like disappointing me right now. Like I have to update it. I had an Evernote and a Google Doc with the same list, but they're like out of sync, so I have to revisit that. Let's see. Let me pick from Kickball because I actually just got the masters back today or yesterday. I guess on Kickball, my favorite one. Honestly, so if you look at the track listing, I just kind of front loaded what I thought was good and put all the shit I didn't like anymore in the back.
I haven't looked at it yet.
So that's pretty vaguely the order, I guess. I think Temple is probably the best one.
I was gonna guess that one.
I haven't.
Because that feels like the most you.
I haven't listened to any of them yet, but I will.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best one, and I put Band Boogie first because I felt like the intro just made sense the most as like an album intro.
Yeah, that's a great one.
But yeah, that's more or less the order.
All right. Well, we'll be sure to check that out. We will be playing some of the music after this podcast, like we have been previously. So this week it will be John's music and not Gary's.
Yeah.
You get a break, Gary.
I know.
Not
I
hot
love
seat
it.
anymore.
Dude,
All right,
tell me
Jonah.
about it. Cranking these tunes out all the time. It's work.
I'm sure Gary can relate.
It's hard. I don't know. Like for me, I actually really like the composition type of the like kind of like phase of the whole process. I hate everything else. Like I hate the actual production, the arrangement.
Oh
the
yeah,
mixing and all that stuff. I hate that stuff.
Dude, I get it. I really get it. Like, cause I guess as like composers, I don't know, there's these kinds of like canonical ensembles that you feel like maybe entitled to be able to write for. And then when it's not as simple as that, you go like, damn it, like I am owed like a chamber ensemble or like a Wagnerian orchestra. So then when you have to actually like do all the virtualization of that, you get pissed off because it's like, well, what's with this world? Why aren't you playing my game music?
Like, yeah, honestly, my favorite part is when I'm actually not sitting there recording, but just like sitting, playing a piano or a guitar, like on a couch.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That is what I like.
I'm glad to hear that, man.
Because I can instantly think about it in my head. I don't have to like
yeah.
actually make it into something, right?
No, right? Like, cause I don't know, man. Like, I think that stuff is cool, but at the same time, it's basically just turning music into like an office job. You're just on the computer. Like, you're not like, I don't know, working on your phrasing on a part or whatever.
Turning music into an office job doesn't sound super exciting, but I guess that's what Gary was just sort of saying.
I mean, I
about
guess it's comfortable.
It doesn't like, have to. I think like for me, the office, quote unquote type of the job, like the portion I hate is just the stress of it all, right? But the actual like creating part is I actually really enjoy it, even with my real job right now.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Just don't like it when management's on your ass about stuff.
Yeah, sorry. All the games I work with take forever, so I don't have that problem.
So Jonah's not riding your ass?
No. It's literally the opposite. I'm like, Jonah, when's I finished this like 2 years ago. I've like completely redone the soundtrack twice. I've redone the whole soundtrack twice just because the game like took longer, and I was like, all right, well, this isn't gonna sound like this. Sounds like I made it like 3 years ago when I sucked that much more. So I got to redo the whole thing.
Yeah, Gary can definitely relate to that. He wants to redo all the music after he makes it.
Hey, I redid all the music for Burgle's Bounty when we redid all the graphics.
You did, and it was phenomenal. But anyway, all right. Maybe we'll jump back to Jonah because I feel like him and I can relate perhaps on this. So when you sort of took this leap out of like an IT job of being a web developer and all that stuff, and how did your support network kind of react to that? Your family, what did they say, or have you told them?
Oh, I definitely told them, They were generally pretty supportive. I'm pretty close to my mom and my sister. My father passed away some years ago, but I was still getting enough income to be fine. So they were like, great, like do what makes you happy, kind of thing. I think it would have been different if I was like, I'm just completely quitting like work and just gonna try and make all my money on games. Like, then maybe they would have been more concerned. But like generally, I'm pretty. I'm not that impulsive of a person. I plan things out and like look at all kind of avenues of where things could go. And so, although making that jump was big from going to full-time to half-time, I was sure I was still making enough to be fine. And that even if I did like lose the job, like there's so many jobs in web development these days, I wasn't concerned about like maybe needing to find another one later or something like that.
I mean, I asked that question because I guess maybe it's because when I sort of wanted to do it full time, I ended up taking that leave of absence, my parents freaked out. I would argue that they weren't the most supportive, but when I told them even as a kid that I wanted to make games for a living, they didn't really like it, but I also don't think they really understood it. Different generation. So just that's good to hear though. That's like, it's awesome to hear that your mom and your sister were super cool about it. How are they now?
Well, they're great now. They're super happy with how the new game is doing. That's surprising though. Like, were your parents like concerned that you would lose that job and not be able to find another one or something? Like, don't they realize how skilled you are in your field and all that?
I don't think my parents quite, not to dig on them in case they actually listen to this, but no, I don't think they get it at all.
Hey, have they actually watched any of these podcasts, Blair?
I'm not even sure I've told them I'm doing this. Tell me about Too Many Snakes. I'm curious.
So that was the first game I decided to like take seriously. I had done game jams and stuff before then. Kind of played around with game development, but I was like, okay, I'm going to actually take a game from conception to production and release. So I wanted to pick something that was smaller, for my first project. So I was like, okay, I'll concentrate on mobile. This was about 6-7 years ago. So mobile market was smaller than it is now, but it was still pretty big. Like there was already a ton of competition. So
what year was it again? Sorry.
Like 20. I think I released in either 2014 or 2015 or something. Maybe
okay.
Yeah, so I like started working on it in like 2013 or something. Yeah, something like that. So I wanted to make something that was, relatively straightforward. So I was like, okay, I need to find a game concept that's pretty easy to implement, and I can just like lock it down and get it out the door. So I came up with this idea of I still really enjoy puzzle games. So I don't know if you've ever played the game Rush Hour. It's like a physical puzzle game where you like have these little cars that you slide around and you try and get the one red car out.
I have not. I don't know, Gary, have you?
I've seen the movie, but no, I haven't played it.
Anyway, I took this kind of game I enjoy, this board game, and had a twist on it, which was rather than cars that just slide back and forth, I had snakes that you could twist and bend around the map, and you try and get this mouse out. And it was cool. I really dug into it, and it allowed me to make a lot of different types of puzzles and things like that. But even that simple concept ended up taking much longer than I expected. One of the big issues was finding the minimum number of moves to get the mouse out. because it was one of these games where it's like, you try and it's not timed, but you're just trying to get the mouse out in as few moves as possible. So move a stake once, again, and then three times, get the mouse out, that kind of thing. Then you get like a rating at the end, like how close to the optimal, solution did you get? But I found that, staring at these puzzles, I wasn't sure I was getting the optimal solution or could figure them out. So I eventually made this whole kind of automated solver system that it was just like a brute force method. It would just like play my levels, just like try every single move until it found like the minimum moves to get the guy out. And it ended up like actually taking some serious computer power. I had to like get Amazon EC2 instance with a
Really
memory, because it was keeping all these different games in memory. So like the biggest memory load that could happen. And it's just like, even though the games, I could like write the game state in a very small way. It was like maybe, maybe 10 bytes or something, or maybe a little more than that. But anyway, it was, even with that small state, keeping track of all these states of the game, I was blowing through the memory of these giant computers. So it ended up like taking a while to not only program that so it could run on these big machines in the cloud, and then like find these optimal solutions. And so yeah, even simple concepts can easily, go out the window.
interesting. I don't. Yeah, I definitely didn't want to do that. I didn't put that kind of effort in Burgle's Bounty. I think the optimal solution was based off of what I thought it was, because I designed the level. But oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for me, I like, it's almost like, I feel almost like a challenge to myself. Like I need to see like, what is the optimal solution to these puzzles? And like, I felt like the computer was almost teaching me something. Like I was seeing like, oh, I think this is the way to do it, but maybe the computer could tell me this, can teach me something about my own game, which was really interesting.
And how much did you learn?
I learned to never make a puzzle game again.
Ditto.
It's yeah. It's a lot of work.
That is, yeah, I can relate.
You're gonna make another puzzle game, Blair?
No. Hopefully not. Maybe.
Or at least not one that, like, one thing I was going for with the game is just like this purity. Like the rules were very simple, and you could only do a few actions. You could just twist these snakes around and move the mouse. And so like I was wanting to like, I'm still fascinated by games like Go, which have pretty simple rules but have a lot of complexity and how those rules work with each other. So I really wanted to, make something like that had these like easy to learn rules, but like really hard to master concepts. And I somewhat succeeded in that. And that is something I actually still strive for with Kung Fu Kickball. That's like almost like a core ethos of Whale Food Games, is the easy to understand, but
hard to master.
Hard to master, that's right.
Very nice. All right, next question is for both of you. So what's your like workflow like when you're creating games / music, and what keeps you motivated? Jonah, or it's actually John, do you want to go first?
Amphetamines.
Good answer.
That's the motivation part. What was the other part?
What's your workflow like?
Okay. Let's see. So I guess I'm trying to think about the game. Like, I guess the first part of the workflow is like trying to decide on a vision. So that can be like, what does the whole soundtrack sound like? What do individual parts of the soundtrack sound like? I'm trying to I don't know, figure where the soundtrack should belong in like all these axes of what music can be. I don't know, that's really abstract. So like right now I'm working on a game called Shillelagh, and it's let's see, what am I trying to do right now? I guess I figured, so game developers, I don't know, sometimes they have an idea of what they want, sometimes they don't. Either one's fine. And I guess, yeah, I really start trying to figure out the vision based on what they tell me. So maybe they have like a specific genre they want. Maybe it's just like a mood. Maybe these like obligations, or like it's like, what does the soundtrack owe to other people? So like, if you're writing a battle theme in a JRPG, you know that you can, you owe Uematsu some money. Like the soundtrack owes like a debt to that guy. So like, okay, I can pull anything from Uematsu's work and that'll be appropriate here, because it's just like you're playing into the history of the situation, and it can also be, and I guess I just kind of just like cross-reference as many things like that as I can think of. Is like, so like in Shillelagh, we started off thinking like, okay, you know what, actually, let me talk about kickball. This is about kickball. I can't remember anything from more than like 20 minutes ago. That's why I was thinking about that. Anyway, so I'm trying to think of what we started off with. I honestly don't remember.
What's your
So,
workflow like? How when Jonah tells you I need X, Y, and Z, how does that
Yeah.
all work?
So let's see. I think where I started with kickball. So I don't remember, and maybe Jonah, maybe you remember some kind of prompt or like requirements that you laid out. I don't remember.
I think I left it pretty open-ended. I was
Yeah.
pretty much like, here's the level art, make
Yeah.
it's this level art.
Yeah, so I was going off that a lot. So like, who was the artist, by the way?
Juno Mendiola, I think is the
Juno. Shout outs to Juno.
Yeah,
wonderful artist, wonderful work. I really loved getting to bounce off of that for this. It was super fun. Yeah, it could be like, I looked at Juno's art and I just see stuff in that and I'm like, oh, I don't know, like the Caves song.
Yeah, that was
I
the first
think, yeah, that was the first one that he did, and that was the first one that I bounced off of. And I remember just kind of taking inspiration from like the giant statue that Juno drew. So like, sorry. That can be like a starting point. I also knew, so like Kung Fu Kickball, you can think of the game as kind of like a Smash Brothers game, at least just in like the structure. Like you got some characters, it's a fighting game and there's sports. It's like both of those. And I think it, in my world, it's a Smash Brothers like game, like, because that game is my life. So from there I understand like, oh yeah, here's like the title theme, here's like the character select screen, here's the levels. Okay, so this is like that kind of gives me like a meta structure to the whole soundtrack, one that I'm familiar with. So then from there, I don't know, I can take any idea from any of the Smash games. I couldn't just, this is kind of just how I think of it, is like, let me just steal from anything that I can justify to myself as a reference or a progenitor. And in the end, I just try and like go back and cover all my tracks. So like maybe it just doesn't sound too much like that. But that just gives me an excuse to like engage with that music. So like um kickball, oh, it's called Kung Fu Kickball. Obviously, like we're going with the Kung Fu theme here. I'm a big fan of Kung Fu movies. So like from there, I can just like take any of the ideas from like any of those old Jackie Chan movies. Like I can take
Like Rush
that
Hour.
like what's that?
Like Rush Hour.
Yeah, no, see, exactly. Like you can just get that idea for free. And I feel like just because that's like on the map of like of our culture, like if you draw the connection there, then I feel like your audience is going to pick up on that and say like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Like they're not going to be like, hey, why did you put that flute there? That doesn't make any sense. They're going to be like, oh, he's referencing the flute from the soundtrack to Drunken Master, and he gets to do that because it's also kung fu or something. I don't know. So yeah, I just like try and figure out how all of those things got made, like all that music. So from there I'll try and figure out like how I can make those sounds myself. So like in this case, I don't know. I'll piece together, oh, okay, I need a like 70s vintage P bass for that like funky kung fu movie soundtrack sound or something. And then I'll just go get that, like, and like play the bass and try and figure out, oh, like how do they phrase their shit? How do I get this to sound like it really came from that? And that actually takes a lot longer than I would like, I guess, or a lot longer than is like really viable from a production standpoint. I take forever. So, and I feel like it's because it's like most of my process is this kind of research and like digestion of stuff that I can steal from. So from there, I guess it's time to actually write the thing. Like I've talked, I don't know, like 8 minutes right now. I'm just starting to talk about like actually writing music. Yeah, from there, like I like to get sheet music for everything that I can think of, like anything I can justify, and study it and figure out like, oh, like what's the harmonic language that they use? What kind of, I don't know, like what makes this kind of music work? And let me figure out like how to get that, like how to take that and like making it into something that I can use. So that might be like kickball, the desert theme. Half of that song is just System of a Down, just like kind of played like pretty shitty, to be honest. But that's what that song is. So that's like, for me, that's an excuse. Oh, okay, I can spend a week just like learning System of a Down riffs or whatever. And I'll practice that, and I feel like it's important to like get that stuff under your fingers, because I don't know, I feel like my fingers are smarter than me. They'll take it. I like, honestly, something I learned on the last soundtrack I did was like learn a bunch of songs, and then it's like, say one of the songs, it's got like a section, B section, C section. Like learn all those, and then I don't know, just like write a D section, and that's like your B section of an original song. Like that's like a really easy way to kind of like turn someone else's music into your own, but like still like cover it up. So eventually I kind of figure out like what are the limits of what I can actually play, and that kind of dictates, yeah, that gives me like some parameters. So I guess I'm like thinking of it as this kind of like problem solving thing, and I know it doesn't have to be that way, and I think I'm gonna move out of that someday. But For now, that's what I can do basically.
How does that compare to you, Gary?
A lot of similarities. I also do like to do a lot of kind of research into stuff, but it's more like I have I have a subscription to East West Quantum Leap or whatever. So what that is, it's a subscription service to I guess a lot of virtual instruments that I use to kind of do sounds for MIDI. And I still have a lot to do in terms of like going through it all and actually trying to find what sounds I do have and listen to them all.
Right. Yeah, because they got so much stuff.
Yeah, they got a lot of stuff, and I spend a lot of time downloading stuff, but I don't necessarily kind of go through and figure out what I have. I mostly kind of go through a process where, like, hey, you know what, I have in my head an idea of what I want to do, and I just sit down and go. But I find myself continually losing momentum because I have to, okay, now like I want a flute sound, or I want something that sounds like whistle.
Right.
Then I have to kind of like sift through all these libraries to try to find it. And I can usually never really find something exactly how I want it to sound. So I just kind of make do with something that's similar.
Right. Yeah.
And then, and then I go and tell Blair, you know what, this sounds like shit. I want to revisit this later.
Man, yeah, I get it, man. Like, I feel like sample libraries, they can sound awesome, but I also feel like it's a real challenge to make something that sounds like music with them. Like,
yeah.
I feel like games are actually a really, like, they're in this unique place with that right now, where it's like, because of you had these games that were coming out where it would be like kind of sequenced in real time for like cartridge space or whatever. So you wouldn't have like a WAV file of the whole song. You would just have like samples of all the instruments, and like your Nintendo 64 would play them or whatever. I feel like the generations that play these systems kind of picked up on that, and so now we have this it's like hypothetical music to us. It's like, here's this thing that you're hearing is kind of an abstraction of another piece of music that like was played with real violins or whatever. But like but it's like the limitations of that medium got this is dead air. Anyway.
Doing fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like how I would look at it is like the limitations of the medium actually kind of gave that music its own character.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I find that like if you play a game and it legit was, let's say, recorded by an orchestra, then it still sounds good. But I find that sometimes because of that, the music fades too much in the background that I don't notice it.
Okay.
Whereas if I'm playing a game that was made in the 80s and 90s, the music was such a big part of that game. Like, it wasn't an afterthought.
Right.
Is that it was just as important as, let's say, the graphics.
Is it fair to say that that musicians who work on like games today, AAA titles, don't have to deal with the same limitations of the technology we did 20 to 30 years ago? And instead of creating chip tunes, they could actually create movie quality or studio recorded quality music?
It's true. No limitations, definitely. But the caveat is that now the demand I guess for quality is so much bigger.
Well, I think it really depends on the title, because there's a lot of indie titles especially that are looking for a specific sound to make it sound like it came from that era, right? Like, so a lot of Nintendo style chiptune music seems to be in demand today.
Yeah, but for AAA, there's also, sure, like AAA now can have this whole range of music and have whole orchestras and things like that. but then I think there's also this pressure to go further, right? With this like adaptive soundtracks that like change depending on your environment and things like that. So it's almost like, it's this whole other thing. Like the technology is like pushing music in this weird ways as well.
Yeah.
Adaptive isn't that new. Like RPGs have been doing it since the 90s. Like Phantasy Star 3, I'm a Sega fanboy, would actually change the battle theme music based on how well you were doing in combat.
Cool.
And like Skies of Arcadia on the Dreamcast did the same thing. But I mean, I guess it's not. Okay, I digress.
I mean, no, it's true. The concept's been around for a while, but just like in terms of the demands of like how subtly it switches from one to the other, and how many levels of
how good the transition is.
Yeah, and I find that would probably be harder to do. Let's say if you're actually recording off a live stream versus programming music, which is what mostly I do.
All right. Cool. Well, I'm going to actually pivot over to Jonah's turn. Jonah's turn to answer this question now.
Oh yeah, get him.
So Jonah, what's your workflow like, and how do you stay motivated?
All right, workflow and how I stay motivated. I guess I'll tackle the workflow first, since I don't have a real answer for that. My workflow can change a lot depending on what I'm working on. One thing about being like a basically one-person game company is that I kind of switch off what I'm working on from day to day. I think probably some of the most fun workflow, which is actually a smaller part of game development than people might think, is playing the game and adjusting things and then playing it again. So like tweaking the controls. I think that could be in a sense the most fun, because that's you're actually feeling the the changes you're doing. So you make a change, like, oh, maybe I'll make this guy kick a little stronger.
It reminds you when you're playing the game, sorry, that your game's actually fun, right? At least that's what it does for me.
Yeah. Right. So like gameplay programming, like that's kind of a more fun workflow. And especially, definitely during the beginning of Kung Fu Kickball, when I was trying to get the jump to feel really good and like deciding like, okay, how high do the characters jump? How floaty are these physics? Because I did want it to feel a little bit like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where there's like characters kind of like soaring through the air. So I wanted it to feel like a little bit floaty, but not too much and stuff. So that kind of tweaking and playing and going back and forth, and then so you think you have it right, and then you like put it in front of people and see how they react to it. So that's definitely the most fun aspect of workflow. But then of course, with my game, I had to have online play and I needed AI. So there was tons of work that went into like getting it to work online, and that's not as fun, because it's just like, play the game. Did it break? Yes. Where did it break? Okay, fix that. Play again. Oh, now it broke somewhere else. Okay, go back, fix that. Okay, play again. And that repeat for 6 months, So not quite
fun.
Yeah, right. Even like the AI training was cool. Like, it finally got it to work. So I used machine learning to train the AI of my game. But getting that to work was like, okay, it's not learning. Why isn't it learning? Tweak some parameters, try it again, leave it for overnight. Okay, it's learning a little better. Maybe try something else, So just game development is all about iteration. But some of the iteration is more fun than other iteration. But then, that's the workflow. The other part of the question, motivation. Motivation is also tough. I feel like the best thing you can do for motivation is just like try and get something, just a little something done every day. Just, it can be small. Just make sure every day you're putting in a little bit of work. And even, and just accept the fact that some days you're going to get less done than other days, and be okay with that. As long as you're like doing a little bit, those little bits add up, no matter how small they are. So it's just like reminding myself of that fact, and like, also taking it to conventions can help a lot with motivation. One of the reasons
even when the feedback is bad.
that can be harder. But like this game in specific, I made to do well at conventions.
Yeah, local multiplayer does well at conventions.
That doesn't mean anything about sales necessarily. But this kind of game, because people go to conventions to like play games with their friends. So any kind of game they can sit down and play against or with their friends, they're going to latch onto. And I kind of noticed this, seeing my friend Sam's game Zarvat being shown. I was like, oh, I want to experience that, to see like people like whooping and hollering about my game. So I made a game to specifically cause that reaction, and then when it does, it feels really good. So that can also be very motivating to like just see that feedback. So that's one of my favorite things to do with the game. So I'll take it to convention. I've got it set up so it like teaches you how to play it on its own. So I don't even like interact with it at all. I just stand back, watch people come up, play, have fun. They don't even know that I'm like the developer there. They just like go play the game, have fun, leave. I just watch them happen.
That's awesome, because I remember seeing Kung Fu Kickball at even both Magfests that I went to, and I remember that it was on an arcade setup, and there was like a whole group around, and like whenever someone would win, they cheer. It kind of reminds me of the old kind of Street Fighter days when I would kind of compete against other people at the arcade and against friends and stuff. So I'm glad you're able to see that experience kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, thanks. And not to go off on a side tangent, but because you brought up arcades, that's another great thing that has come from the game, is that there's another group here in New York called Death by Audio Arcade, who make indie arcade cabinets, and they found my game and were like, hey, we think your game would work cool in a cabinet. And that's actually another like thing I had in mind when I originally created the game. It's like, oh wow, like I knew about Death by Audio arcades. I was like, wow, this would be really cool if it was in a cabinet. And the fact that they came to me and they're like, hey, we want to put this in the cabinet. And I was like, hell yeah. So they were able to build this cabinet and then like bring it to Magfest and stuff. So that's just been another kind of sort of dream come true with this game, is to like see it in an arcade cabinet. And we actually just shipped out the second cabinet. So
I heard. Congratulations.
Thank you. Funny story. Some random arcade bar owner from Beacon, New York, like must have seen the game at Wonderville, which is the bar run by Death by Audio Arcade, that has the game currently. And he thought it was like a product. So he reached out to me. He's like, hey, I'd like to buy a cabinet. Like, oh, cool. We don't really sell them.
We'll build one for you.
We'll build one, right? So I worked with Death by Audio again to make a second cabinet, and that like just went up to Beacon. It's this bar called Happy Valley Arcade.
Wow.
And it's like just went up over the weekend. So that's been great. And,
that's awesome.
That's got to give you all the feels.
It does. And it also makes me think like, from a business standpoint, it's like, okay, well, maybe the game doesn't
market here
on Steam, doesn't do that well on console. Maybe I'll try and sell cabinets. It's a completely different ecosystem. There's actually not that much competition in the indie game cabinet market. There aren't that many customers.
I don't know.
I know.
Arcade scene. I mean, I don't know what the demand is like there anymore. Sorry, go ahead, Gary.
Right. I'm saying like I know a couple bar owners up here. I might be able to convince them to get one.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So up across the border.
Yeah, why not? So it's going to be very interesting to see how it does in Beacon. So I'm keeping track of like, this is also the first cabinet that actually accepts quarters. So I'm going to see how much it actually makes for that bar, and like if it's doing well, I can be like, hey, buy a cabinet, it'll make back its cost in this many months and things like that. So it's definitely another.
Actually, how many months do you think it would take to make back the
It's tough to say. So the cabinets cost about $5,000 to create, so they're not cheap. Now, how I decided to do payments is use like a quarter per player. So if you're doing a 4-player game, that's going to cost $1. If you're doing 1v1, it's just 50 cents. So I'd be pleasantly surprised if it makes back its money in like 4 months. I would expect, I'm actually not that optimistic about how long it's going to take. So I would guess more maybe like 1.5 years, if this bar is like continuing having people come in.
It's like what I'm finding special here in Edmonton is that there's been a lot of bars popping up here that like are arcade themed.
Interesting.
And they're doing very well. So
nice. Well, that's the other thing is like, even if it's not necessarily making money with the quarters that go in, a lot of these arcade bars actually don't even care about the money they make on the games. It's all about the drinks. So if it keeps people there and buying drinks, which is where the bars make most of their money, then that can be a great selling point too. And it has an interesting part in this market because like in terms of indie arcade games, right now the biggest one is probably Killer Queen, which is actually another local company here in Brooklyn. Great guys, Nick and Josh. But then there's not that many other but Killer Queens kind of requires like almost 10 people to play. You know, you can play with less, but the best games are with 10 people. So this could be like a slightly smaller version.
That game does seem kind of intimidating whenever I see it. It's like, that's a lot.
It's a lot. It's great though. It's got a huge community. Like people are really invested in the game, which is really cool. But it's also like kind of this forerunner to like show like, yes, the indie arcade games can be a thing. So I got a lot of respect.
That is kind of cool. Yeah. Nice. Very nice. So another question for both of you. I think I know the answer, but people who are listening / watching may not. So do you guys have any side hustles to sort of bring in some extra revenue, or is it all games and music? Who wants to go first?
I mean, this is a side hustle. I have a job. Yeah, I go to work, normal job.
You don't have to say who you work for, but may I ask what you do?
You know, it's funny. Jonah taught me how to do his job, so that's what
you're doing. Web development. Wait, did you guys used to work together?
No. Yeah, I don't know. I was just, between jobs or whatever. All my friends are these people at Gumbo because I do this shit. And I'm like, guys, what do I do? And there's like, oh, go make websites. And I say, all right, how? And they teach me. And that's basically it.
That's actually a pretty awesome story. Like Gumbo taught you?
Oh, you went to a boot camp as well.
I mean, yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do that without the Gumbo people. Like, it's like 50-50.
Did you two meet each other at Gumbo?
Through a game jam.
Something like that, yeah. So, yeah, I think it was a game jam.
Yeah, I think there were at least a couple of game jams before Gumbo was really a thing. Is where
yeah.
How about you, Jonah? I think I know the answer, but
oh, right, the side hustle. Well, like I said earlier, I had this half-time web dev job for a long time. But for now, I've decided to try and go
all in
game dev. So we'll see how that works out. So for now, I'm not doing anything else. Just
sweet.
Concentrating on the game.
You got balls, my friend. I wish I could do the same. I
do have significant savings that a nice big runway. So it's it
helps, I'm sure. Yeah.
I've got backup plans.
It's always a good idea to have when we all love games, but we know indie gaming is hard. It's kind of hard to make a living at. Very few. It's like acting or trying to make your band big. It's very few truly succeed, but it's a passion, and we all love doing it.
and I think there's also a lot of survivorship bias. You know, I don't know. A lot of people see like Hollow Knight, you know, it did so much, made so much money. You know, you just got to make an indie game and you make it big. But it's like, no, that's like, there's so many Metroidvanias that come out every year, and so many that just
get ignored.
Yeah. It's almost like joining a multi-level marketing scheme. Like it's only the 1% that actually make it. Everyone else just kind of like tries to. Yeah, almost. I got roped into this by Blair Pyle. So.
I never promised you shit, Gary.
Yeah, I know.
Right, it's like a multi-level marketing scheme that doesn't even promise you to get rich. It's like, you're probably not going to get rich, but try it anyway.
Yeah. Right. Both of you have talked about it. What's your favorite part? What do you love about Gumbo?
I love about Gumbo.
Or the indie scene in New York in general.
I used to really like those brick walls that you had.
We still have them. The new place has them.
Oh,
okay. Is that where you are, Jonah? Or you
No, I'm at home.
Okay.
I could have taken this call, Gumbo. Joe, do you get a little tour?
We wouldn't want to bother Sam.
He doesn't mind being bothered.
No, you know, it's definitely the Gumbos, like the people. Like it's a fun crew. Yeah. Catch us in the park grilling burgers or whatever.
Never grilled burgers in a park with you guys. I'm missing out on so much by not being there more often.
Bruh.
Yeah, same here.
The park 2021 is the year of the park.
The summer, yeah, definitely. I mean, hopefully it all works out.
How's the park by you?
Are you talking to?
Yeah. Actually, both of you. Like, what's your park like?
Oh, so I live in Astoria.
Astoria Park. I used to live there. Astoria Park.
I love Astoria. Yeah, Astoria Park is great. Yeah, it's huge too.
It's great. Beautiful
The
park.
very start of COVID, I was there at the picnic with some friends where everyone was socially distanced, etc. But I think that was the last time I was there, and that was actually last summer. It was a year ago, almost.
Oh man, dude, I remember. I lived there when Pokemon Go was like big.
Nice.
And Astoria, you know, living there, being able to go to the park on your bike and having a Pokemon Go phone, like that was so much fun. That was a good like 3 weeks.
I could see
It's
that.
just those things. Yeah.
How about you, Jonah?
I mean, Gumbo is great because it can be both my work life and my social life, and I don't need to separate those two. So
isn't that hard though? Isn't that like, I mean, you're not directly working with people, so like you don't have the same kind of work disagreements or work drama that goes on in a real office. That definitely helps. Oh yeah, there is definitely drama that happens there.
But yeah, no.
But generally speaking.
But right, no, you don't have like weird, boss, underling drama stuff.
Yeah, or coworker, disagreements or whatever, or
no one wants authority over anybody. It's great.
Yeah, the nice part about working there is you don't work with the people. You're just sharing the space and sharing each other's company.
Yeah, it's just great to, have somewhere else to go to work. So like, sure, a lot of people have been getting used to like working from home now, but I've been doing that for over a decade because when I went half-time on my web dev job, I also started working remotely. So I came to realize that it can be awkward to work in the same space that you relax in because it's good to like separate the spaces for different like mindsets. Like if you work mindset, to have a different space that's like this is your workspace, so you're like in work mode. And then like when I'm home, it's like, okay, it's a relaxed mode, relaxed space. So just being able to separate those two has been really valuable.
Yeah, I think a lot of people during COVID times can definitely relate to that. I don't get enough of that. As you know, I'm only showing up to Gumbo on weekends these days. Mm-hmm. Fridays are not really possible anymore.
Oh man.
here. All right. We're getting to the end, but I gotta know what are the hardest things you've faced? First of all, you, Jonah, while making Kung Fu Kickball, the greatest challenges you've had to deal with so far. Hopefully no more major challenges now that we're coming to an end of it. But
I think now we're like getting to the end, just like running through, finishing up a few more features, and then we're gonna have that console release later this year, which will be great. That'll be I think the most satisfying feeling is to have the game out on console, because I've always been a console gamer. I grew up with original Nintendo, so like
yeah, me too.
Switch and stuff, that's gonna just feel great. But some of the biggest challenges to get there, let's see, I guess just netcode, online play was one of the biggest things.
I mean, that's your most recent challenge that even.
It's not. It's. I mean, I'm concentrating more on it right now. Although that's just kind of winding down. But it's been a challenge since day one in this game. Like I knew originally that it needed to have online play if it had any chance of selling. But I assumed that, like, I knew it was going to be hard, but I thought that there were like kind of standard,
better APIs, better things to handle some of the issues you're running into, but apparently not.
Apparently not. Like at the time, GGPO was the main, like, this is the one to go with, but it's become open source since. But at the time, it was like very hush hush, and you had to like contact the developer directly to get access to it. And so I was learning about all these different techniques of netcode, and it's just been a real struggle. But I'm pretty happy with how it came out, and finally have a solution that works. And it's kind of like I did a lot of research and studied what GGPO did, and actually kind of came up with my own version of that kind of works a little better for my game, because it's like a 4-person game.
Was that correct me if I'm wrong, but was that the issue you had with float points not being deterministic across different CPUs? So
that's just an issue you have with
in general.
Lockstep. The way I'm doing an online connection is kind of based on this peer-to-peer kind of framework called Lockstep. And the idea with Lockstep is each player is playing their own version of the game and just sending their inputs to the other players. So like this is what the original Doom first used for, when that was like one of the first like online computer games was John Carmack just like threw together an online play into Doom really quickly. It was crazy. But the idea was that, the two games had to work in synchronously with each other. They were in lockstep with each other. And one issue that can happen with that is that computers can treat numbers differently depending on the architecture. So because I wanted the game to be crossplay and work between all different PCs and consoles and all things like that, there were certain types of numbers I couldn't use. One type is called float. I'm explaining it for because any listeners who like may not know the intricacies of this super nerdy
I don't know any of this
math number stuff. But basically floats are used everywhere in game engines and in physics engines and stuff. So
a lot for 3D development.
Yeah,
but not as okay. Now, because 3D engines are making 2D games, they're used a lot more.
They're used. Because like anything like Unity, its basic like vector concept, which is used, in 2D or 3D or whatever, is a collection of floats. So I can't rely on any of those because they could be evaluated differently on different computers. So I had to I couldn't use Unity's physics engine. I had to find an open source physics engine, replace every single time it used a float, replace it with this other type of number that was reliable across different systems. So yeah, it was a huge process.
Cool. So Jonah, like I mentioned before, like that when you do like float point calculations and stuff, that it's very common for like 3D games. I want to elaborate on that because when Gary and I first started making games, we made 2D games in QBasic with screen resolutions of 320 by 200. So everything was pixel based. It was how many pixels do you move across the screen? So there were no float points in that at all. All integers basically. So high resolution, not the same.
Q basic.
That's where Gary and I got our start. Actually, no, basic on Gary's Commodore 64.
Oh, cool. Was that like?
And we totally aging ourselves here with Commodore
Oh yeah,
64.
we were like 8 years old, I think. I don't know, 7. How old were we, Gary?
It was around grade 3. That was when I first learned to quote unquote program.
We were too young.
That's really cool.
All right, John, I'm going to ask you the same question. What kind of challenges do you face with music creation? What's the hardest thing you find about doing this?
Oh man,
Hard question.
all of it. Just like getting good takes. I think when I was and like getting sample libraries to sound like music, I think those are the kind of the two big ones that when working on Kickball, those were the ones that I learned about the most. And I think probably the sample thing is the one, because on all the soundtracks I worked on before this, I didn't really need to lean on sample libraries as much. Like I would write stuff that was like, all right, like Zarvat, like that's mostly like like small combos or like trip hop or something, where like maybe you're using samples, but it's like it's like a combo. It's like a small number of instruments. But with Kickball, there was, we needed like an orchestral sound or like a big band sound. That's so like for this kind of thing, I was totally reliant on orchestral samples, and like I'll write as many guitar and bass parts as I can like justify, but like this was where I kind of started learning about the concept of like, oh, here's how like a mix image works with this kind of instrument. This is what like a large ensemble sounds like and works like. And like sample libraries, like they kind of have all these little opinions baked into them, and they all work just like a little bit differently. So like getting them to cohere with each other is like that was a huge challenge on this one. So like maybe it's just like, this sample library recorded in this one hall in England is like, oh, that's the perfect sound for these strings. But like for the brass, oh, I needed the I don't know, the sample model, like it's like a synth maybe that like sounds like a trumpet and it goes brown brown. How do you get those to sound like they belong together? Like and that's like, so you take those kinds of like, I don't know, concerns or just like ideas about like how to make it sound like an ensemble that like wasn't just recorded like in like 100 different rooms in different like years probably. How to get that to all like play together. And like there's not even just like one way of doing that. There's like here's the way you might want to do it if you want it to sound or feel like oh, maybe you're trying to go make it really naturalistic. Maybe you're trying to make it sound like a pop record. Maybe you're trying to make it sound like a hip hop mix or something. Like there's all sorts of different ways of doing that kind of thing. And it was super fun to just like try and figure out how to do that stuff. So huge challenge. But I feel like I got to learn a ton on this one.
That's awesome. That's really cool. All right, guys, we're getting to the end of this. But John, we'll start with you. What kind of advice would you give to other aspiring game
Oh,
musicians or indies? Yeah, the advice question. I know.
I can't. I am no authority on anything. I
You know,
can't
that's the
help.
thing. Everyone says that, but everyone has some wisdom that they can pass on.
Um,
Like, think of yourself, like, if you're giving yourself as a 10-year-old child advice, what would you say to 10-year-old self?
um, that just made it worse.
Oh, sorry.
I can tell like, a 27-year-old bad advice. I can't like ruin a kid's life.
I've ruined a lot of kids' lives. Don't worry. I will give me some advice.
Give Gary some advice.
Yeah.
um,
I give you some tips.
I don't know. Here, Gary, can you talk so that it goes to your camera?
Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh, can I click? Okay. See, I don't know anything about you. Could you maybe show me the room? I could give you some like interior decorating advice.
No, it's
what
gonna
it
be
said, actually.
okay.
Oh, that's perfect. I
Interior
could use some
decoration.
interior
Okay.
decorating advice, but I'm
All
just
right,
gonna do
all
a
right.
little zoom around of kind of my
I like your
equipment that I
plan.
have.
Oh, you gotta keep talking, Gary.
Got
So it's focused on you.
rockets.
Rockets, nice.
I got a
classic.
code 61 here
Oh, dope.
using
dope.
a Focusrite.
Yeah, very nice.
That's about it. I have a guitar that's upstairs.
Nice. What kind?
It's a Korean Ibanez.
Oh, nice.
So you can think of that as like the equivalent of like a Mexican Fender.
Right. Yeah, I got one of those on Craigslist right now. Actually, if anyone is trying to buy a like a MIM Strat, hit me up, and I might not have sold it by then, but I keep buying guitars, so I have to clean my closet out.
You got a few on your wall, just a few.
Yeah, well, that's why. Like, you can't sell when you buy these guitars. You can't. It like there's a case that's like twice as big in the closet, and I can't get rid of it because that's where like half of the value is or something. I don't know. It's just like they want you to have the original case for whatever reason. Just like, oh, this is like a real vintage, right? And whatever. So there's my advice is to don't sell your cases of the vintage guitars and stuff that you buy. Or maybe do. Maybe don't be like me. Maybe it's better to not have the case. Who's to say?
I have this like foam case for one of my guitars. I really like
Yeah.
those just because they're really light. And so allegedly it like
Uh-huh.
insulates it too. It's for an acoustic guitar. So
Cool. All right. What if I turn this into like, what did I learn on kickball? Like what?
Yeah, let's do that. What did you
Yeah,
learn on
what-
kickball?
I'm telling John at the beginning of kickball, hey, here's some stuff that'll save you a lot of time. I guess. Oh, use gates. That's like super important for getting like a. I
for
don't
when
know,
you're
just
recording
like-
stuff.
Not just like when I don't know. I feel like when you're recording stuff, I want it as like lossless as possible, I guess. Like I try to get just like super clean and or like accurate recordings, and then like I'll run the gate during the mix part just because like I don't know, I could make a mistake when I'm gating it.
Yeah, that's
on the way
what
in.
I do.
Yeah.
I do it just so I
okay.
can play with the level.
Yeah.
And I'll try to find that sweet spot where like I'm not taking too much away from the recording, but I'm getting rid of the noise.
Yeah. Well, yeah, all kinds of ways. All right. Well, we just gave 2 advices.
Yeah, there we go.
There's 2
So
different ways of-
whoever's listening to this, whoever
yeah.
that may be. Gates.
And like, yeah, use gates and I figured out kind of a lot about convolution reverb. That was like a big discovery with me recently, I guess. Like basically there's 2 kinds of reverbs. You got reverbs that are trying to sound like effects. Like think about like an 80s snare. Like that doesn't sound like a place. That sounds like, oh, like this, it sounds like this, like really dramatic and exciting effect. That's dope too. But convo reverbs, kind of like what I was just talking about with like the getting the strings from England to sound right with the brass from LA or whatever. That's gonna kind of be your ticket there. So like a convo reverb is made to sound like it's like a real and like really specific place. I have no idea how they do this. But it's cool. And like kind of the way you do that is you work with filters and stuff, and you send everything to the same convo verb, and you try and make it sound like it all actually happened in that room. So to John in like 2017, focus on that stuff. Man, I feel like a year of work just lifted off of my shoulders, because like I was smart enough to know that a year sooner or something.
That's awesome. I remember trying to use combo reverbs back in 2003-ish, and they were so process intensive that it would crash my computer.
Oh yeah.
Time. So
yeah,
now the computers are actually better in 2020.
Yeah.
Go back and try using those again. But I kind of had this stigma where it's like, I'm going to stay away from this because I know it used to like completely break my computer back in the day.
Yeah, no, they're like that, man. That like I guess one way to do it, I've been considering getting like an outboard one, like one of those like lexicons or something, but I guess the disadvantage with that is I would have to do like real-time rendering for everything, and I'm too lazy for that. But yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome advice. All right, Jonah.
Oh, and get a good mastering engineer. It'll like don't listen to the soundtrack yet. Listen to it when I finish uploading what the mastering engineer sent me. Good stuff. They're worth every penny.
Do you work with one online, or do you have one kind of local that you?
He's like a dude that I know, but like yeah, he lives like in a different city, so I guess it's online.
Yeah, because I was thinking at some point I'd work with someone at a studio and like get all my guitars retracked for the battle music. That's kind of like one of the things that's on my list of things I want to do.
Like reamped, like take your DIs, or like
like a complete player. Like I'm gonna hire a session guitarist and like, track it.
Dude, sick.
To do it properly, right? Like I figure like, maybe I'll spend like a little bit of money just to have something like an iconic battle music to be done, right? I don't necessarily want to spend coin on like every single track, but certain ones, I'll make concessions for.
Yeah. No, that sounds awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm in with that.
Yeah, because like let's be honest, Gary's a shitty kind of performer, right? There's a reason why I'm not in a band.
That's like when I was in like high school and I was thinking about this stuff, I was thinking like, oh dude, I can play like 8 instruments. Like why aren't games doing this stuff? I'll be like the best composer ever. I can't actually play like any of those instruments. Like when it's time to record takes, I don't know. These illusions have completely disappeared from my brain. I don't believe it anymore.
Yeah, like I actually tried to do the intro of the Kids of Karendow battle music like a million times. Yeah. And then eventually just like, you know what, I can never get this to sound the way I want. So I just cheated and I programmed the intro.
Yeah, no, that's not cheating. Absolutely, man. I've spent on the kickball, the desert theme. That's the one where like it's very sody guitar work. And I remember I spent like literally a whole Saturday on 8 measures of that. Brutal. Can't play it. It's still in there as though I could play it. So maybe if I just didn't say anything, people wouldn't notice. But yeah, Nah, now it's out there.
You guys will notice, but I don't think Jonah or I would.
Yeah, I don't know, like Blair, for Poogle, have you noticed how sloppy the guitars are in that?
I thought that was intentional.
No.
Damn.
It's
But
just
I thought you were
playing.
going for like that kind of like, I don't know, just sort of like
like a drunken bard or something? Like what?
yeah, maybe. I just thought
Okay,
that
yeah,
was your
okay.
intent.
You know, that'll be the official story then. It was a
Oh,
drunken
shit.
bard playing.
Noted. So do you want to redo that or something?
Still waiting for that on Steam.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where it lands in the final version.
Oh, we're not talking
I
about
could
versions
probably
better. This
probably
is-
use
this
some
is
like
town
some
music that the
warping
kids
to
of
fix
Karendow.
it up. Who knows? But yeah, now that's out there.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Kind of one of those things like if I tell you now you can't see it, or now you can't hear it.
Excuse me. That's hilarious. All right, Jonah, I will let you answer the same question however you want. What advice would you give someone, your 10-year-old self, or me, about game development?
I don't think I get like Blair. You know as much about game development as I do, so this would be more advice for my 10-year-old self, I guess, and my 10, 15, 20-year-old self. Like
Yourself from last year.
like the past 3 years I've been working on this game. I don't know if I'd have that much advice besides just like telling myself like which netcode solution to use to skip some pain there. But to go back further, I think I would tell myself to take more art classes because art
That is good advice.
Art is such an important part of games these days. It always has been, but even more so now because just like people are so, with social media and stuff, you need a GIF or something that pops out at people, that grabs people's attention to make them pay attention to your game. So I have taken art classes in the past, and but that is something I feel like I really need to work on and improve, like finding a distinctive art style that will grab people's attention. So that's kind of what I'm considering for my next game. Is like,
Who did your shirt?
So this was the logo was done by Juno, and then you can see the back. I don't know. You can see that.
Flaming volleyball or kickball, I guess.
Flaming
Yeah.
ball.
Flaming ball.
But that artwork was done. So I actually had the graphics of the characters kind of evolved from, at first they were these kind of silhouette, really pixely looking guys. And then I had a animation team that I met called Exit 73 do a really short 30-second animated trailer for the game. And then I got, at the same time, I got the publisher, Blowfish. And Blowfish was like, we want to redo your characters. They look like the characters in that trailer. So then they took the kind of concepts that Exit 73 had kind of come up with for the trailer. Because I had told the animation team basically, like, these are kind of the character archetypes, kind of go crazy, do what you want with them. And so then they came up with these concepts, and then Blowfish took those concepts and like, okay, we're making these actually the characters now. So then they had like more concept art done and stuff. So the concept art on this shirt was done, or at least was hired to be done by the Blowfish team.
Nice.
So, and then they've been continuing. Then they've added more characters for me as well. So that's been a great relationship. Is finding Blowfish to be a partner and helping with, making this a more marketable game and things like that. And the console porting has been really nice to have them handle that too. But yeah, especially because I want to be a solo developer. Like I want to be able to have my hands in almost everything except the music. I'm happy to leave all the music to John.
I relate again.
I find it very cool to hear you two like kind of talking music shop talk.
Dude, that's like, I don't know, man. That's like the funnest part of this whole thing. Like, game developers, like, they let you do anything. It's so
Gary,
awesome.
let you do anything?
I would rather talk music than like sit here and talk about floating points all day.
Ouch, Jonah. That was a dig at you.
I mean, kind of me too. I only deal with floating points because that's what I got to get through to get the game done. But yeah, like programming wise, like I feel like there's like you can do a lot. Like programming, you can just kind of do enough Google searching, look at enough Stack Overflows to eventually get things. But to like be a good artist or a good musician, actually, you just takes time and you got to do stuff over and over again. So that to go back to the original question, that's what I would have told my younger self is like spend more time doing art and getting better at that and developing the style.
That's good advice. And I feel like I could use that advice, and maybe my younger self could use that advice too. That is, yeah, because I focused when I was growing up. I mean, well, right now, you can easily say that you can write shitty code and still make a really good game. Mm-hmm. Whereas 20 years ago, resources were still limited. Writing bad code and getting away with it was less possible. Especially on consoles, when you're dealing with something like Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, or even like the first generation 32-bit consoles, Sony's, the PlayStation, and God forbid the Saturn.
I guess the biggest thing with the consoles, you couldn't push updates. So if you had a bug in your game,
yes,
and that was just a bug forever. Like
yeah, now the internet allows you to just fix your issues on the fly, thankfully. All right. All right. Jonah, the last one's for you. This is all for you. Give us the pitch. Pitch Kung Fu Kickball. Tell us why everyone should be playing this game when it comes out, or downloading it now in early access.
That's right. So everyone should both be downloading it now in early access and then buy it again when it comes out on console later this year because it's just that good. So
Dude,
Kung Fu Kickball.
I love this game. You go to the arcade, you go to Wonderville. You see people playing this game, they're having a blast. It's a fun game.
Thank you, John.
So where is this bar?
The bar is the first bar, Wonderville, is in Brooklyn, Bushwick. It's a really cool bar. It's got a bunch of indie arcade cabinets. They're more like kind of almost like art pieces. So they don't have any like the standard arcade games, just these like weird indie games, mine being one of them. And then the second bar is called Happy Valley, and that's in Beacon, New York. It's kind of a little further north than New York City. And so that's actually like a real arcade bar that's now got a Kung Fu Kickball cabinet.
All right, Blair, when I come to New York, let's go to one of these arcades, get smashed, and play.
We'll go to Wonderville. Beacon's a little bit more of a trek, but we'll go to Wonderville for sure.
Yeah, you should definitely check out Wonderville. It's great.
Right.
Yeah,
back to the game pitch.
So Kung Fu Kickball is a team-based fighting sports game where the best ball kicker wins. You gotta punch, kick, and headbutt your way across the field to smash the ball into your opponent's goal and rack up points. It's kind of like a cross between Smash Brothers and Rocket League. You're kicking a ball around, trying to kick the ball onto the bell and get points, and it's a lot of fun. You can up to 4 players. You can do generally like a team 2v2. We've got online play, single player mode, and also got a Discord community at discord.gg/Kung Fu Kickball. So we're really trying to build that up. We'll probably be doing some tournaments at some point later this year.
Am I still banned from those?
I don't think you'll have to be banned anymore now that people have a chance to like catch up in terms of skill.
Thank you. I could just like sink into my legend and never play again.
So you were unbeatable, were you?
So, I didn't think I was that good, but apparently it was a problem.
This
So
is from a tournament at Wonderville some time ago.
yeah, that would be awesome. So I will say I'm really looking forward to this game. I'm a little disappointed you never implemented the groin punch. But I'll
Classic
forgive you
Johnny
for that.
Cage,
I want everyone who's listening to this to definitely get this game when it comes out, whether it be for PC, Mac. It's not coming on Mac, is it?
It is on Mac, actually.
Oh, so PC, Mac, and consoles when it all comes out. All the links to everyone's stuff, Jonah and John's, this game, your social media, etc., will all be in the description. Any final words, guys?
Kickball.
Kickball. All right, guys.
Thanks for having us on, Blair.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
fun.
you
Yeah,
so much
man.
for coming.
Thanks, guys. I had a
This
lot
is
of fun.
For sure. Nice to meet you.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.